The studio audience settled into their seats expecting another typical Tuesday night taping of Jimmy Kimmel Live. The energy was electric as usual, with Kimmel's signature smirk plastered across his face as he delivered his opening monologue. Tonight's guest was Margot Robbie, fresh off her massive success with the Barbie movie that had dominated box offices worldwide and sparked countless cultural conversations. As Robbie walked onto the stage in a stunning pink ensemble that clearly nodded to her iconic role, the audience erupted in applause. She waved graciously, her trademark smile lighting up the studio as she settled into the guest chair across from Kimmel's desk. The interview began smoothly enough, with Kimmel's standard softball questions about her upcoming projects and life in Hollywood. "So Margot, the Barbie movie," Kimmel began, leaning back in his chair with that characteristic condescending tone he reserved for topics he deemed beneath serious discussion. "I have to ask, when you first read that script, did you think to yourself, this is it? This is going to be my Shakespeare moment?" The studio audience chuckled at his obvious sarcasm, but Robbie's smile faltered slightly. "Actually, Jimmy, I think you're missing the point entirely," she replied, her Australian accent carrying a hint of steel that wasn't there moments before. The film was about examining societal expectations and the impossible standards placed on women. It was deeply meaningful work. Kimmel rolled his eyes dramatically for the cameras. "Come on, it's a movie about a doll. Let's not pretend we're curing cancer here. I mean, my daughter plays with Barbies, and trust me, there's no deep philosophical meaning when she's brushing the doll's hair." The audience laughed again, but this time it felt forced, uncomfortable. Robbie's posture stiffened visibly. "That's exactly the kind of dismissive attitude the film was addressing, Jimmy. The assumption that anything marketed toward women or girls is automatically frivolous or meaningless." Her voice remained controlled, but there was an unmistakable edge creeping in. "Oh, here we go," Kimmel said, throwing his hands up in mock surrender. "I make one joke about a toy commercial disguised as a movie, and suddenly I'm the villain. This is why people can't have fun anymore. Everything has to be some grand statement about society." He turned to the audience, seeking their support. "Am I right, folks?" The response from the crowd was notably muted this time. Robbie leaned forward, her media-trained composure beginning to crack. "A toy commercial? Jimmy, the film grossed over $1 billion and started conversations about gender roles, corporate influence, and self-acceptance. But I suppose that's all just marketing to you." "Look, I'm sure it made a lot of money," Kimmel replied dismissively. "But let's be honest about what it is. It's cotton candy for the brain. Pink cotton candy." He chuckled at his own joke, completely oblivious to the storm brewing across from him. Robbie's jaw tightened. "You know what, Jimmy? This is exactly why the film needed to exist. Because of attitudes like yours that diminish anything that resonates with women or challenges the status quo. You're proving our point better than any script could." The tension in the studio was now palpable. Kimmel, seemingly irritated that his guest wasn't playing along with his dismissive banter, doubled down. "Oh, please, spare me the lecture. It's a movie about a plastic doll that somehow convinced everyone it was high art. Next you'll tell me the Transformers movies are commentaries on foreign policy." That was the breaking point. Robbie's eyes flashed with anger as she stood up from her chair, her pink dress rustling in the dead silence that had fallen over the studio. "You know what, Jimmy? I've sat here for 10 minutes listening to you mock something that meant the world to millions of people, and I'm done pretending this is funny." Kimmel looked genuinely surprised by her reaction, his smug expression wavering for the first time. Whoa, Margot. It's just a joke. This is comedy, remember? You're supposed to laugh." He gestured toward the audience, but even his loyal crowd seemed uncomfortable with the escalating tension. "This isn't comedy, Jimmy. This is you being a condescending ass who thinks anything that doesn't cater to your specific demographic is worthless." Robbie's voice carried across the studio with crystal clarity, her professional facade completely abandoned now. "You sit here night after night, making jokes about things you clearly don't understand. And when someone calls you out, you hide behind the "it's just comedy" excuse. The studio cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of what was rapidly becoming the most explosive talk show moment in recent memory. Kimmel's writers and producers watched from the wings, frozen in shock at the unfolding disaster. This wasn't in the script. "Look, I think you're overreacting here," Kimmel said, his voice taking on a patronizing tone that only made things worse. "I've had plenty of strong women on this show, and they all understand how to take a joke. Maybe you're just having a bad day or something." He turned to the audience again, desperately seeking their support. "She's probably just tired, right, folks?" That comment was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Robbie's composure shattered completely. "Are you seriously mansplaining my own emotions to me right now? On national television?" Her voice rose, cutting through the studio like a blade. "This is unbelievable. You dismiss my work, you dismiss an entire cultural movement, and now you're telling me I'm just tired and emotional?" The audience sat in stunned silence, many pulling out their phones to record what was clearly becoming a viral moment. Social media was already lighting up with clips from the live broadcast, hashtags beginning to trend as viewers witnessed the meltdown in real time. Kimmel, clearly rattled now, tried to regain control of the situation. Okay, let's just take it down a notch here. This is getting a little intense for late-night TV." He attempted his trademark grin, but it came off as nervous and forced. "How about we talk about your next movie instead? Something a little less controversial." "Controversial?" Robbie repeated incredulously. "Jimmy, the only thing controversial here is your complete lack of respect for your guests and your audience. You think you can just dismiss anything that doesn't fit your narrow worldview, and everyone should just smile and play along?" The tension in the room was suffocating. Crew members exchanged worried glances, unsure whether to intervene or let the train wreck continue. This was unprecedented territory for the usually controlled environment of late-night television. Kimmel's face was flushing red now, his carefully maintained host persona cracking under pressure. "You know what, Margot? I've been doing this show for 20 years. I've interviewed presidents, movie stars, musicians. I think I know how to conduct an interview." His voice carried a defensive edge that revealed how deeply her words had struck. 20 years of what? 20 years of talking down to people? 20 years of reducing everything to your level of understanding? Robbie fired back without hesitation. "Just because you've been doing something for a long time doesn't mean you've been doing it well." The studio audience was now completely silent, the usual laughter and applause replaced by an almost unbearable tension. Even the band members sat motionless, instruments forgotten as they watched the confrontation unfold. Kimmel stood up from behind his desk, clearly agitated. "I think we need to take a commercial break," he announced, looking toward his producers off stage. But Robbie wasn't finished. "Of course you want to take a break. Heaven forbid your audience sees what happens when someone doesn't just sit there and take your condescending nonsense." She turned toward the cameras, addressing the viewers directly. "This is what passes for entertainment in Hollywood. A man who thinks he's untouchable because he has a platform." The situation was spiraling completely out of control now. Kimmel's face had turned a deep shade of red, his carefully crafted television persona completely shattered. "You know what, Margot? I don't have to stand here and take this from some actress who thinks making a movie about a toy makes her some kind of cultural prophet." His voice carried a venom that shocked even his longtime crew members. The studio gasped collectively. Several audience members audibly whispered, "Oh my God," as they realized they were witnessing career suicide in real time. Phones were now openly recording from every angle, the footage already spreading across social platforms faster than anyone could contain it. Robbie's eyes widened with disbelief before narrowing into pure fury. "Some actress? Some actress?" She took a step closer to Kimmel's desk, her voice rising to fill every corner of the studio. I've been nominated for 3 Academy Awards, Jimmy. I've produced films that have changed conversations about women in Hollywood. But sure, reduce me to some actress because I dared to challenge your fragile ego. The tension was so thick it felt like the air itself might explode. Kimmel's band leader looked desperately toward the control room, silently pleading for someone to cut to commercial. But the producers seemed paralyzed by the spectacle unfolding before them. This was ratings gold, even if it meant career destruction. "Oh, here we go with the credentials," Kimmel shot back, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let me guess. Next you'll tell me about all the important causes you support and how you're changing the world one Instagram post at a time." He gestured mockingly toward the audience. "This is Hollywood narcissism at its finest, folks. Everything is about them. Everything is profound. Everything matters." That comment pushed Robbie over the edge completely. "You pathetic, bitter man," she said, her voice now cold as ice but carrying to every corner of the studio. "You sit behind that desk night after night tearing down people who actually create something meaningful because you've never had an original thought in your life. You're a parasite feeding off other people's success." The studio fell into absolute silence. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath as they captured every moment of the unprecedented meltdown. This wasn't just a heated interview anymore. This was a complete demolition of professional courtesy on live television. Kimmel's jaw dropped at the personal attack. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of his desk. "How dare you come onto my show and attack me personally? I invited you here as a guest, and this is how you repay that courtesy?" "Courtesy?" Robbie laughed bitterly. "You call what you've been doing courtesy? You've spent the entire interview mocking my work, dismissing my intelligence, and when I finally stand up for myself, you want to talk about courtesy?" She shook her head in disgust. "This is exactly what's wrong with this industry. Men like you think you can say whatever you want, but the moment someone pushes back, you're the victim." The audience was now completely transfixed, many leaning forward in their seats as if watching a car crash in slow motion. Social media was exploding with hashtags like Margot vs. Jimmy and Kimmel Meltdown, trending worldwide within minutes. Kimmel stood up fully now, his height advantage doing nothing to intimidate the furious actress across from him. "You want to know what's wrong with this industry? It's entitled celebrities who think their opinions matter more than everyone else's. You made a movie about a doll, Margot. You didn't cure cancer. You didn't end world hunger. You made a movie about Barbie." "And there it is again," Robbie shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at him. "Your complete inability to understand that stories matter, that representation matters, that giving young girls something to aspire to beyond your narrow definition of worthiness actually means something." Her voice cracked with emotion and rage. "But why would you understand that? You've built your entire career on punching down at people who dare to dream bigger than your small-minded worldview." The control room was in chaos now, with producers frantically trying to decide whether to cut the feed or let the disaster continue. The legal implications alone were staggering, but the ratings were through the roof as viewers across the country watched the most explosive talk show moment in television history. Kimmel's composure was completely gone now, his face contorted with anger and humiliation. "Get out," he said quietly at first, then louder. "Get out of my studio! Security!" The word echoed through the stunned studio like a gunshot. 2 security guards appeared from the wings, looking uncertain and uncomfortable as they approached the stage. They had never been called to remove an A-list celebrity from a talk show before, and their hesitation was obvious to everyone watching. Robbie turned to face the approaching security, then looked back at Kimmel with pure contempt. "You're actually having me escorted out because I wouldn't sit here and smile while you insulted me and my work?" Her voice carried a mixture of disbelief and fury that seemed to resonate with every person in the audience. "This is my show, and I don't have to tolerate being attacked by some self-righteous actress who thinks she's above criticism." Kimmel shot back, his voice shaking with rage and embarrassment. The cameras captured every moment of his meltdown, preserving it for posterity and viral infamy. One of the security guards reached Robbie's side, speaking quietly. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I need to ask you to come with me." His tone was apologetic, clearly uncomfortable with the situation he'd been thrust into. Robbie looked at the guard, then back at Kimmel, then directly into the main camera. "This is what happens when you challenge a bully," she said, her voice, now calm but carrying an authority that commanded attention. "They can't handle being called out, so they use their power to silence you. But you all saw what happened here tonight." The studio audience began to murmur, some starting to applaud. Slowly, a few stood up, then more, until nearly half the audience was on their feet clapping for Robbie. The sound built into a crescendo that seemed to shake Kimmel to his core. "Sit down," Kimmel shouted at his own audience, his desperation now fully exposed. "This is ridiculous. She attacked me personally on my own show." But his words were drowned out by the growing applause and supportive shouts from the crowd. Robbie gathered her composure one final time, smoothing down her pink dress and lifting her chin defiantly. "I came here tonight to promote meaningful work and have a conversation. Instead, I found a small man who feels threatened by anyone who won't play along with his petty games." She looked directly at Kimmel. "Your ratings are already tanking, Jimmy. This just guaranteed they'll hit rock bottom." The security guards flanked her as she walked toward the exit, but she moved with the dignity of someone who had just won a battle. The audience's applause followed her every step, growing louder as she reached the edge of the stage. Just before disappearing into the wings, Robbie turned back one last time. "To everyone watching at home, don't let anyone diminish your dreams or your work. And don't let bullies hide behind comedy when they're just being cruel." With that, she was gone, leaving Kimmel standing alone behind his desk in front of a studio full of people who had just witnessed his complete professional implosion. The aftermath was immediate and devastating. Social media exploded with support for Robbie and condemnation for Kimmel's behavior. The hashtag #StandWithMargot trended worldwide within an hour, while "Kimmel is finished" followed close behind. Video clips of the confrontation racked up millions of views across every platform, with commentary overwhelmingly siding with the actress. By morning, major sponsors began pulling their advertising from the show. The network executives were in emergency meetings, trying to contain the public relations disaster that was spiraling beyond their control. Entertainment news outlets ran continuous coverage of the incident, with media experts calling it one of the most shocking displays of unprofessional behavior in talk show history. Kimmel's ratings plummeted in the following weeks, with viewers abandoning the show in droves. The incident had exposed something ugly about the host that audiences couldn't unsee. Industry insiders whispered about his future, while Robbie's career soared to new heights as she was praised for standing up to workplace bullying and defending artistic integrity. The confrontation became a defining moment that highlighted the importance of respect and professionalism in entertainment, proving that even the most established hosts weren't immune to consequences when they crossed the line.